The Law and You, a look at laws in St. Vincent and the Grenadines which affect our daily lives. The Law and You, presented by lawyer panel P.R Campbell QC and brought to you on SVG-TV as a public service.
Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, boys and girls, greetings. Welcome to another presentation in this public service nation-building series, The Law and You. This is program number 878, coming to you on Monday the 2nd of October 2017. On this program, I will speak to you on the topic, the spiritual dimension of crime. But before beginning the topic, two short preliminary comments. Firstly, as usual, condolences to all families which have suffered recent bereavements. First of all, the family of Sister Tiny, whose funeral unfortunately I missed yesterday, and the funeral of those brothers, the family of those brothers whose funeral must have been held recently, if they have been held yet. The two brothers who were killed by gunshot from the Vermont Valley. Don't know them. I recognized a familiarity with the picture of the father as published in the newspaper, but it must be really heartbreaking for parents to lose two children within days of each other by gunshot. My heart goes out to you all. And let me say thank you to young grammar school lad Kyle Brung of Rivulet for the favor you did for me last week, Friday. You would know, and when your friends hear that your name was called on this program, you can tell them what it is all about, but thank you very much, Kyle. Now, let us not forget that we have a continuing duty to provide hurricane relief, and in all of the relief drives, we have sort of lost track of the fact that Cuba was also badly damaged, and a hurricane relief drive is on to assist the Cuban government with their recovery efforts. You will hear more about this from time to time on the news. Okay, the topic for the evening, the spiritual dimension of crime. Now let me issue a disclaimer. I am not a theologian. I've never studied theology. I don't claim to have theological insights or abilities. But what I can put forward is that the Bible is a book in which I believe. I have been reading it since about the age of 6, not by choice in those early days, because when I lived with my father, I was obliged to read aloud to him a chapter of scripture every single night before I went to bed. So by the time I got in my teens, I knew quite a bit about the Bible and a lot about what it taught. Not that I was a committed Christian until much later on in life. But sometimes we who profess belief in the Christian faith sometimes ignore the most important source of knowledge of what is happening in the world today. Now, this is not encounter part 2 for tonight, but it probably will sound like that. I will share something with you. Yesterday, I was requested in church to read the gospel reading. It was taken from St. Mark chapter 1 from verse 14 to verse 39. I hadn't been asked to prepare anything before that, but as usual, when it came to gospel reading time, a different person is normally selected from Sunday to Sunday to bring the gospel, and the lot fell on me yesterday. So when I was given that assignment, I glanced at the text before I was called upon to do the reading, and then I saw one of the themes of that bit of scripture. When I went up to read the passage, before I began, I said to the church, and this is at St. Elizabeth Cathedral, Belmont, and all those who were at the service would bear me out. I said, there has been a topic which I have wanted to speak about for years and have never done so. But when I saw the reading today, I have decided to speak about that topic on my Law and You program tomorrow night. This is what I said yesterday to the church. And as I said, you can check anyone who was present at that service to confirm that I did indicate yesterday morning, and this would have been around 11 o'clock by the time we got to the gospel, that I would be dealing with the topic on this program. Lo and behold, when I woke this morning and switched on my television as I normally do on CNN to catch up with the latest news, there was being unfolded on TV the drama, the utter horror, the wickedness of a mass shooting in Las Vegas. And when I checked a few moments ago before I left my office to come up the hill to do this program, the news reported that the death toll from that shooting stood at 58, with over 500 persons suffering injuries from gunshot wounds. Turned out that a man of 62 years, who had had no previous brush with the law, no previous conviction, who had led a normal life, had somehow smuggled 10 rifles, automatic rifles, which he converted into automatic rifles, into a hotel room. And during the holding of a concert, where the news reports that there were some 28,000 people gathered to enjoy the concert, this gunman opened fire on the crowd. One witness said the shooting went on for about 10 minutes. But at the end of it, 58 people so far confirmed dead, and over 500 wounded. And I tied that in with my intention to speak tonight on this topic. The spiritual dimension of crime. Right now in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the crime statistics are becoming alarming. Last year, we thought we had reached a peak of 39 or 40 homicides. And in the early part of this year, it looked as if we were going back to normal with a figure in the 20s. But September has been called Bloody September in St. Vincent and Grenadines, with about 9 deaths, almost all of them resulting from shooting. Naturally, whenever crimes escalate, there is normally a political debate as to not what has caused the escalation in crime, but who has caused the crime statistics to escalate. So right now, the two political parties are blaming one another, or at least one is blaming one and the other one is saying, well, you too. But I wonder if it is not futile to be trying to cast blame on any government or any political party for the increase in crime. If you check the newspapers from around the Caribbean, and you can do that by simply going online, each and every country has manifested reasonably dramatic increases in the criminal statistics in recent years. And when you look at or listen to world news, and if you really want comprehensive world news, I would recommend 2 English-speaking channels. For those who have cable, channel 282 Al Jazeera and the channel 160, the BBC. CNN and MSNBC are good for American news. Occasionally, they touch on foreign news, but in-depth coverage, to me the best in-depth coverage I know of on television in the English language is from Al Jazeera. I listen to at least 2 major newscasts on Al Jazeera practically every night to catch up on what is going on in the world. Now, for those of us who have been doing that, something would have stood out, namely the amount of human suffering which is going on in the world today at the hands of other human beings. I am not speaking about suffering from natural disasters, because, we have more than our fair share of hurricanes, earthquakes, floods, in some places, fires. I am speaking about human suffering caused by man's inhumanity to man. Whenever you hear of a refugee crisis, it really means thousands, millions of people are fleeing from one part of the earth to another because of the atrocities carried on them, usually in their own countries. So they have to scamper and find refuge in other countries. So that following the situation around the globe, there are so many places where people are killing other people in localized conflicts, tribal conflicts, ethnic conflicts, conflicts of geography, of nationalism. an endless saga of mankind destroying mankind. Excuse me. Some years ago, I think if my memory serves me correctly, about 25 years ago, a gentleman encouraged me to read this book. The book is called This Present Darkness, written by Frank E. Peretti. And the gentleman loaned his copy to me. That gentleman was Brother Errol Daisley. And he encouraged me to read this book, and read it I did. And ever since reading this book, This Present Darkness by Frank E. Peretti, I have had a new awakening, a new mental dimension. And it dawned on me, having read that book, that a lot of what happened in biblical times is still happening today. Unfortunately, many churches appear to be uncomfortable dealing with spiritual warfare. Very few churches bother with the theme. But as far as I'm concerned, from all that I have read, spiritual warfare is very much alive and is probably growing in the world. You see, there's a passage that many of us know quite well. Ephesians 6, verses 10 to 12, and I will remind you of what those verses say. Verse 10, finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Verse 11, put on the whole armor of God, that he may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. And verse 12, this is the one that many of us know quite well. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Now, let me come now to the passage of the gospel which I was asked to read and did read in church yesterday. Mark chapter 1. I will begin for this purpose to read from verse 23. The scripture says, and there was in their synagogue a man with an unclean spirit. And he cried out, saying, let us alone. What have we to do with thee, thou Jesus of Nazareth? Art thou come to destroy us? I know thee who thou art, the Holy One of God. And Jesus rebuked him, saying, Hold thy peace, and come out of him. And when the unclean spirit had torn him, and cried with a loud voice, he came out of him. And they were all amazed, insomuch that they questioned among themselves, saying, What thing is this? What new doctrine is this? For with authority commanded he even the unclean spirits, and they do obey him. And immediately his fame spread abroad throughout all the regions round about Galilee. And going down to verse 32. At the even, that is at the evening, when the sun did set, they brought unto him all that were diseased, and them that were possessed with devils. And all the city was gathered together at the door. And he healed many that were sick of divers diseases, and cast out many devils, and suffered not the devils to speak, because they knew him. And verse 39, and he, that is Jesus Christ, preached in their synagogues throughout all Galilee, and cast out devils. Now, the question I want to put to us all is this. We know from this and many other scriptures that an important part of the ministry of Jesus Christ was the casting out of demons from persons who are demon-possessed. We know that because the good book tells us that. The question is, do we think that demon possession was a thing of the past, a thing of biblical days, a thing of the time of Christ, and that somehow it has vanished from the earth? Well, if we think that this thing of being possessed of unclean spirits was a thing of the past and it no longer has any relevance nowadays, I would suggest we are mistaken. And that brings me to express my own personal conviction that a lot of what manifests itself as crime is the manifestation of the works of the devil possessing human beings. Take this man who has killed 58 people last night in the United States of America. By all accounts, so far a normal person. But something got into him to lead him to plan massed murder, to collect 10 rifles, and to simply mow down innocent men, women, and children. Take other crimes that we hear about. You may say, well, the person who did this was wicked. Yes, but what inspired the wickedness in them? So that without getting into theological discourses, which I'm not competent to traverse, I would simply ask us, those of us who believe in the Bible, and some people don't, okay? But those of us who say we believe in the Bible, we will see that the Bible has foretold all that is happening in the world today. And a lot of what is happening by individuals, which result in the deaths of so many other persons, a lot of it, to me, results from people being possessed by an unclean spirit, forcing them to commit these atrocities. I'm not saying in every case, nor am I saying because I simply don't have the expertise to say so. I am not saying that there cannot be genuine mental illnesses which make people psychotic, make them do things, commit crimes for which there is no explanation. But I'm saying it is highly probable that a lot of this so-called wickedness that leads people to commit mass murder must result from people being possessed of unclean spirits or demons or devils. Now, I readily acknowledge that these comments may be taken as controversial. They're not meant to stir up controversy. It's simply meant to ask us to open our eyes, read the Bible and relate it to what is happening nowadays. And ask ourselves if enough disciples of Christ, namely ministers of the gospel nowadays, if enough of them devote enough attention to the question of demon possession and how to deal with it. I know at least one religion in which some priests are specially trained in exorcism because they realize, quite rightly, that human beings are often possessed of spirits which make the human beings do things of which they would not otherwise be capable. So in some faiths, you have special healers, people who cast out demons, the way that Christ did and taught his disciples to do, and expected his disciples to continue to do. So we must not be afraid to speak on matters of that kind, and let those who have the knowledge and the intellectual expertise explain these things to us. More pastors should go in the pulpit and talk about this sort of thing, because to me it's very real. Otherwise, I can't understand how a normal man will go and take gun after gun after gun, shooting and killing people at random. Wickedness, yes. Extreme wickedness, yes. But the work of the devil, to me, yes, yes, yes. So I hope pastors would take me up on the challenge and tell us, go into the Word and open our eyes so that we understand that when we see crime escalating, we could fit it into a pattern of increasing ungodliness, increasingly yielding to the devil and his wiles, drifting away from our true source. I told you I would sound like Encounter Part 2 tonight. But now that I've unburdened myself of that, I would not trespass on that topic too many times. I'll stay within the real law. But in the law courts, we are troubled with the growth in crime. But perhaps we need to open our eyes and understand why there is such a growth in crime. So that is all from this program of The Law and You, program number 878. I look forward to being a further service to you next week, Monday, DB, for another presentation in this public service, nation-building series, The Law and You. Do have a pleasant week, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, boys and girls, and may the good Lord continue to bless us all.
The Law and You, a look at laws in St. Vincent and the Grenadines which affect our daily lives. The Law and You, presented by lawyer panel P.R Campbell QC and brought to you on SVG-TV as a public service.